or you can just like write a letter. So long as you get the message to Congress. Send me the American Jobs Act so I can sign it into law. Let's get something done. Let's put this country back to work. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless.
President Obama also plans to visit Ohio and North Carolina this week to encourage support for his jobs plan. Next, White House Budget Director Jack Lew on how the administration plans to pay for the president's jobs plan and still achieve deficit reduction. After that, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney answers questions regarding the president's plan.
It's your lucky day. Before I get started and tell you why I have Jack Lew here, I just wanted to give you a sense of what where this week is headed for the President. Today, as you know, the President, flanked by the kinds of workers who would benefit from the American Jobs Act, announced that he would be presenting specific legislative language on the bill today. He's still asking Congress to take up and pass the bill promptly. Tomorrow, the President will travel to Columbus, Ohio, where he will visit a school that was recently modernized. He'll get a first-hand sense of the jobs that were created and the tangible benefits to the students, teachers, parents, and communities that this work will provide. That's why he's included money for school construction and modernization in the American Jobs Act. On Wednesday, the President will visit a small business in the Raleigh-Durham area that would benefit from the bipartisan proposals included in the American Jobs Act, including enjoying a reduction in their payroll tax and an expanded payroll. I have with me today Jack Lew, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. As you know, as you heard from the President, he will be submitting the American Jobs Act to Congress later today. You've been briefed, I think, pretty extensively on the provisions that create jobs and grow the economy in that act. Part of that act the President presents to Congress today has what we call pay-fors, has the mechanisms by which those provisions will be paid for. Jack is here to discuss those with you, explain them to you. If you want to ask him questions that he can handle, and then I will, of course, remain and take your questions on other subjects. Thank you. Jack Lew.
Thanks, Jay. Let me start by putting the whole pay-for package into perspective. When the President spoke to Congress last week, he said he was going to present the Jobs and Growth Package. It's roughly $450 billion, and that it would be paid for. And today he's sending legislation to Congress that has both the growth package agenda and the pay-fors in it. He is presenting a series of specifics, which I will get to in a minute, but he also said that the target for the Joint Committee should be raised. And I know that's caused a little bit of confusion, so I thought I'd start by putting the relationship between the two into perspective and then going through the details. This is a standalone bill. It has the investments in growth and jobs, and it has some provisions that pay for it. By raising the target of the Joint Committee, what we're saying is Congress should pass the jobs bill now with the pay-fors, and when the Joint Committee reaches its decisions later in the fall, it can then either put in new offsets to pay for it, and that would trigger the pay-fors that are in the bill off, or it can do the original target of 1.5, and then the pay-fors that are in the jobs bill will stand. So that's the relationship between the Joint Committee and the bill. The bill is paid for, and whichever path the Joint Committee takes, the jobs piece is paid for. It's a question of whether or not the Joint Committee comes back and essentially replaces these offsets with others. The specific offsets that are in the package are a series of tax provisions. I think they'll be familiar to most of you because they're ideas that we have been talking about for the most part for some time. First, there's a limit on itemized deductions and certain exemptions for individuals who earn over $200,000 and families earning over $250,000. That limitation raises roughly $400 billion over 10 years. There is a provision that would treat carried interest, that's the interest earned by investment fund managers, as ordinary income rather than taxing it at the capital gains rate. And that would raise $18 billion. There are a number of oil and gas provisions which collectively raise $40 billion that would treat, with the enactment of these provisions, would treat the oil and gas industry like other industries, taking away the special preference. And finally, the corporate jet depreciation rule is changed. Right now, corporate jets are depreciated over 5 years. Commercial over 7. It would treat commercial and corporate jets the same at 5 years. That raises 3. Yeah. In the aggregate, these provisions actually raise $467 billion. It intentionally overachieves because these are based on our estimates internally. When the Congress estimates tax provisions and we estimate tax provisions, they rarely are pinpoint accurate to the same number. Sometimes they're higher, sometimes they're lower. And it just built in a cushion so that as we go through the process of having the scoring done on the Hill, we've built in a cushion for the differences that happen. But we do believe we've overachieved, which would leave a bit of excess. That's kind of the kind of package of offsets. I could take questions.
Jack, I wonder on that one point, though, when you say you've overachieved, the very first one you listed was the biggest amount of money, $400 billion, eliminating itemized deductions. I seem to remember in 2009 in the President's first budget, that very provision was in there, and you were saying then, I know you were not on beach, whichever your predecessor were saying that that was going to pay for health care reform. And you had a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate, and it went nowhere. So how are you going to get it done now in the Republican House?
I think that the merits of the proposal stand on its own. As the President made clear in the speech last Thursday and as he's spoken to the issue subsequently, we have choices to make. We have, in order to invest in jobs and growth, we're going to have to pay for it. And we're going to have to look at quite a few things that we've looked at before and ask the question, should we do this in order to add to growth and create jobs? We think the American people will think this is the right package. But it's our offer as to what the right way to pay for it is. We think Congress should take it up and pass it.
Doesn't agree. You essentially have $50 billion left for
$450.
But
we believe Congress should agree. We believe Congress should agree.
But if they don't, you've got no money.
We have policies here that are very real, and again, it's a choice. Do we want to leave? The way this limitation on itemized deductions works, if you earn $200,000 as an individual or $250,000 as a family, your itemized deductions and exemptions are worth roughly 28%. That's the tax rate. If you're in a higher tax bracket, it's worth 33 or 36%. All this says is that the value of tax deductions above that threshold should be the same as the value at the threshold. And we think it's a fair provision. We think that it's the kind of balanced trade-off that will be right. And let me also point out that we are pulling out of the package that we'll present next week the pieces that self-contained are the jobs and growth package and the pay for. We're going to have a lot more detail a week from today of what the overall deficit reduction package is. We're going to overachieve beyond the Joint Committee target. I mean, what the President has been saying and will continue to say is we need to do the jobs bill and the growth package now, and we need to deal with the fiscal challenges, and frankly, we should do more than the target the Joint Committee has. This is the piece that, taken alone, would do the jobs and growth package in a paid-for way.
What's the rationale for having Congress vote on the set of pay-fors along with the jobs bill, but then giving the super committee the option to redo that package?
Well, frankly, the urgency is to act as soon as possible on the jobs and growth package. We don't think that it would be the best course of action, would be the right course of action to just defer everything to the end of the year. We wanted to pull out the provisions that we thought could move most quickly.